Hello, everybody. Welcome back to episode 116 of the Podcana podcast. This week, we are continuing to dive deeper into Fabled. It is the Fabled Pre-Release week. I just spent the past few days over at Gamescom, where I did extensive testing. I proxied some Set 9 decks, some of the decks that we showed off in last week's episode of the podcast that Moyen made, and I had a fantastic time playing against Spessy, some of the Lorcana devs there, and just like my teammates from the Playing Ducks and loads of other members of the community. So it was a fantastic time. I learned a lot about kind of the very early metagame, my initial predictions on what I feel are kind of the best decks, the best cards within those decks. But I'm very, very excited to continue discussing all of the new decks, and then also talking about the different iterations and different changes that we can make to the existing deck list that we showed off last week. But before we jump into it, I do want to say to you guys, thank you so much for the support on last week's episode of the podcast. It was our most viewed full episode, which was really, really, really cool. I'm glad you guys enjoyed us talking about all of these new deck lists. I'm convinced it was just because Moyen was on vacation. Everyone was so curious to see Moyen in a different location, right? But and Moyen, I mean, how was your vacation? How are you doing? Have you had time to do a little bit of Fable testing yourself, or are you still maybe just waiting and eager to jump in once the set fully releases?
Well, there's a lot more left to be done, but vacation was great, and since I've been back, I have been getting back into things. It's just like I've been a little bit split between prepping for the last Set 8 tournament in Malmo Games Week, but also starting to test, how exactly does the meta look like, or how exactly should we build these decks, going a little bit deeper, testing, because like last week it was like basically just theory.
Yes. Yep.
So now in the next few weeks it will be about like putting all of these ideas to the test and seeing what works and what doesn't work.
100%. Yeah, I've really enjoyed my time testing, and I'm excited to talk to you and all the viewers about my experiences so far. So let's jump right into it. As you guys can see on the screen, we have the lovely folks from the Artacast, LD and Artabax, and I wanted to kind of discuss their initial tier list of the decks from Fable before we jump back into looking at new deck lists and refining the ones we showed off last week. So initial impressions, I'm just going to read out the tiers. We're going to take it tier by tier. I'll start the lowest. We have Amber Sapphire and Amber Amethyst. Judging up, if you want to just look at previous sets, even before rotation, these are two colors that maybe weren't that strong. Amber Sapphire had a little bit more love with some kind of cool puppy aggro decks that we saw. Right now, my biggest worry with these decks is, they're probably just aggro decks, and the aggro variants will be fine, but against stuff like other evasive decks, or like what the one ink brings to the other ink, I just don't think it's enough to make them be very, very powerful. Like, these are the two deck combinations, or two ink color combinations I haven't even tested at all, because I personally don't see too much value in it. Would you agree roughly? Again, I know you haven't done much testing, but from like the theory of how many people have you seen kind of making these decks and stuff, like, do you think maybe there's a bit of unexplored territory there, maybe as well?
I think most of these like aren't fully explored for sure. I think with like most of these colors that we see here in B and C tier, you could easily build a deck that's like pretty good going first.
Yes.
As it kind of seems like a lot of decks struggle against aggressive questers on the draw. The thing is, like, do they really have the capabilities to be better on the draw, or hold up against like the top decks of the format in their entirety and their matchup spread? But I think like it doesn't make too much sense for me to like go too much into depth with these colors, because I think it's like, I don't think it's impossible that one or maybe even two of them actually turns out to have like a decent deck that just wasn't found yet.
No, I think that's a really valid point that you made, and I think the more interesting thing, rather than me starting at the bottom, maybe we actually just like focus on the top, right? That's what everybody wants to know. What are the best decks coming into Fabled? And I think overall I would agree with the decks that they put on the top 3 with an S tier here. So you've got Amethyst Steel, Amber Steel, and Blurple. These are 3 of the 4 decks that I proxy that I tested extensively during my time at Gamescom, and very much I would say that the community has the idea of this initial meta triangle, right? And I'm going to explain it where Amber Steel is an aggro deck. It beats Blurple fairly consistently. Blurple is a very value-heavy deck the longer that the game goes on. So Blurple tends to beat most other Amethyst combinations, right? Whether that be green-purple, whether that be purple-steel. And then purple steel, a lot of people are kind of claiming, oh, it has the tools to be able to tackle Amber Steel aggro. Personally, I've done a good amount of testing, and I don't think it's like a one and done, oh, I have a favored matchup. I would agree that it's one of the decks that probably has the tools to be able to combat it the best, but it's still very, very difficult if the Amber Steel player just has a really good opener with like the Tiana and the Pluto. Like, that felt pretty much unbeatable when I was doing my testing. But yeah, I mean, overall, this isn't too far away from what I expected even last week before I done the testing, if that makes sense. But since doing the testing, I would still say that these were the 3 best decks I played with. Does this surprise you, seeing a lot of people think that these are the 3 top decks at the moment?
No, it doesn't surprise me. It's like these are the 3 decks that I built last week, right?
Yeah, exactly.
As like the anti-fun guy that just tries to build what he thinks will be meta. So that doesn't surprise me at all. I don't know how much of this meta triangle really exists though, because as you kind of pointed out, I do think some of these matchups can be a lot closer than like rock, paper, scissors meta. The question is kind of, I think it's the actual dynamics will probably go so much deeper than a triangle. Because Blurple might struggle against these aggressive decks, but I can hardly see it be unfavored against like any other mid-range / slower decks. But I don't think that means that the aggressive decks, like the aggressive Amber Steels and the Purple Steels, that they just don't have a bad matchup. I think there will be stuff that beats it. One deck that I have been working on that we'll talk about later is like a red purple that like takes huge advantage of you if you do play the Tiana Amber Steel version, just with like small CISO and just like plays for board really well. And it's like kind of once these decks emerge that deal with Amber Steel aggro and Purple Steel, I think those are the decks that will I assume will likely have like a very hard time against a deck like Blurple. And this is not something I put time into yet, but like I don't even know how, like if Blurple is bad against Amber Steel, like how bad is it even? Like is it playable? Is it like really, really bad? All of that is still like left to be explored.
Sure. Yeah. I think I found it to be quite difficult, to say the least, because yeah, I mean, the Amber Steel player does just go so fast, but like I never really got to a game where like maybe, I mean, well, if they have the Tiana on board, right, I was going to say I never really got to a game where I could get my Monstro active and discard a load of cards and kind of clear their board, because even Monstro should technically be okay against at least one Tiana, right? It's only going to minus it by 3, so then you might be able to clear off some more things, but then you have to have enough cards in your hand. Like, it's still going to be very, very difficult to kind of claw your way back. There are some tools that Blurple can use against Amber Steel aggro, but we'll get into it as we talk about the deck. So I think that's what we're going to do now. We're going to move into talking about the different deck lists. So what I did was I proxied the 3 decks that Moyen made, and I made my own little version of a green-purple that Taris made, the deck that we showed off last week. And I wanted to talk about some of the changes that I've made to the deck, some of the things I've noticed. So starting off with Blurple, one of the main inclusions you guys can see that I've added to the deck is Into the Unknown. I know a lot of other Blurple players have been playing this already. I haven't liked the idea of the card that much previously, but in a meta with so little removal, I think it can be quite good, particularly in the late game. I don't think you really want to use this in the early game at all. maybe as a desperation play against a Tiana for Amber Steel aggro. I think like that's the one use case where, okay, Into the Unknown is actually a pretty good tool to deal with the Tiana. Um, Besides that, not a lot has changed. I've gone down on the amount of Scrooge McDucks. I've added a little bit more top end with the ACOS Elsa. But overall, this deck just felt very, very good against any sort of mid-range deck, against any other Amethyst deck, because it just had so much value. The Bell was incredible. The Hypnotic Strength helped with a lot of break points. The Donald Duck, I know I was talking to you, Moyen, before the podcast, still didn't feel that great, but I think in this deck it can definitely be a card that can be swapped out, but in some matchups maybe where you just want to like heavily go to the top end fast, right? The Donald Duck can kind of make sense, but I found myself to be in the situation where, okay, it's turn 5, I could play Elsa and then like follow up Anna and then just do like get to my Hades or something, or do I like really want to do my Donald just to get to my Hades in this specific moment? And most of the time I ended up just trying to do like the Elsa play or a sneaky Bell play or something rather than playing the Donald. The games still didn't go that long for me where I played Monstro a lot. I felt like I just had enough value with even everything else in the deck. And overall, I have to say, having 4 Iagos in your early builds, Moyen, that's something that we mentioned last week. I think it's been pretty good. Like, I've seen a few more purple decks play Hypnotic Strength and stuff. I think Hypnotic Strength is a fantastic card alone, and it also acts as a very good anti-vanish card against your opposing Iago. So I honestly think starting off with 4 Iagos in the Fabled meta is fine. People might adapt to it. People might be able to handle it a little bit better. And the one thing I want to mention is the last thing is from doing all of the testing with Dumbo. Dumbo is not a card you should be playing on turn 4 in my opinion at all. Maybe on turn 5 if you want to, and then you want to exert one of your evasives to draw a card. But Dumbo tended to shine the most when it was kind of turn 6, turn 7. Maybe spend 1 or 2 ink to draw a few cards with the other evasive cards. But it did feel good when it was good. But luckily this card is inkable. If this card wasn't inkable, I really don't think it would be played as much, because it needs to have that flexibility to be able to ink it in the early game. So yeah, those are my initial impressions. Any notes, Moyen? Like, what are your thoughts on the inclusion for the into the Unknown? Do you think it might be necessary against certain matchups? I do think the fact that it's inkable is actually hugely important. Again, if this card was uninkable, I think it would be much harder inclusion. But yeah, curious to hear your thoughts on that card.
Yeah, my personal guess is still like I'd rather play my deck without it.
Mhm.
And I hear the argument of sometimes you lose to Tiana, but
Mhm.
like I feel like if they spend 3 and quest it, and like I need to pay 3, or I guess like maybe hopefully sing it, but like
You're still
still I
ramping them.
think yeah, and which sometimes is fine, and sometimes they draw a dog and it's not fine. I think like the more efficient way, or like the spot that you want to get yourself into, is just like to play a 4-drop that can challenge Tiana, and then when they exert it, just pay 3, take it out, and hopefully take some more trades. Which doesn't feel great, but I think personally probably the deck can get away with not playing it.
So do you think for that reason you'd play you actually might go back up on the Scrooges because it has a pretty good stat line into the Tiana? That makes sense.
That was like the main reason I included that many Scrooges in the first place. Like Iago can do the same thing, but then like Iagos are great. I think we should definitely play them, but like they're not as reliable as like sometimes they just like target it with like strength or maybe a fire the cannons or whatever. And just completely folds. But like I think playing more 1-drops completely fine. 1 Elsa, 3 to 1 shot. Like there's some stuff that you've done with this deck that I still like. And I'm like, I haven't tried it, but like I'm not surprised Donald has been bad. Like every time you think, oh, maybe now it's good enough, it's like, no, it's still too slow. But now we're kind of like, we have such a shortage on good cards at some point, like in those slots. Like there's not a lot of other good cards that I'd rather be playing. It's like I'm still like thinking maybe Donald's okay, but I could totally see it's still being too slow.
Yeah, I could have even played like 1 or 2 more 1-drops in this deck as well, but The issue in the meta now is like the more one drops you play, and if you're trying to play a deck like this, that you want like late game and stuff, you don't want to be drawing your one drops in the late game. Luckily, this deck draws a lot of cards, so maybe it's okay to get away with like 10 one drops instead. But yeah, I think that's a good point about the Scrooge. But my biggest issue with the Tiana still, and they don't always do it, but it felt like they always had it when I played against it, where even if they exerted their Tiana, they just put the Pluto down. Like imagine we're playing this and that happens, right? It's like how do we win? You just lose the game.
That is true. That's true.
And games went like that so often against the Amber Steel aggro decks. But yeah, we'll move into the next deck, which of course is Amber Steel aggro. This is had quite a few changes since the one we shut off last week. Most notably, we decided we were just talking before the podcast on these changes, and yeah, I decided to take the Aurora package out, which then made us take a lot of the princesses stuff, like the 3-cost Raya. The Namari, I just never played. It was like I was just winning so fast that I just never got to play the 5-drop. Or if I did have the opportunity to play the 5-drop, a lot of the time I just wanted to play like a 3 and a 2 or something, or I just like draw a dock instead. But yeah, I think what we grasped from the Aurora was it's a good card, but from the play patterns of like, oh, I get to play my Tiana a turn earlier, I think just playing on turn 3 anyways is still very, very strong. Like, it's not like playing it turn earlier has any massive benefit compared to playing it on turn 3. And then also, like we just said, doing the Tiana and then the Pluto line is super, super strong, and that lets you just go like 1-drop and a solid 2-drop as well. So I think there's a lot of different things that you can do with this deck. Like, we put 2 of the John Silver in here. I know Moyen was talking about maybe we could put Pete's in place of it, but I feel like Pete is like, from the testing I've been doing, it's just a 3/3 that you're playing most of the time, and it has to be like the perfect opportunity where you think it's going to save you against a strength or against some little action card that might change the course of the game. Like, you just can't afford to hold on to cards like that, and at least this John Silver does something a little bit more interesting where it can technically affect the board state for the next turn. We went a little bit higher on some more 2-drops, like we included the Lilos in here. We upped the count of Captain Hooks because Hooks, surprising, was actually very good in my testing for Amber Steel against the Emerald decks as well. And we threw in a Vinny as well, because I don't think Vinny's necessary in these decks, but I look at Vinny now, and because it's very difficult to remove a card like this, I kind of would imagine if this card had Ward, right, how good this card would be. And maybe in this meta, you could nearly say it has Ward if it's so difficult to interact with. This is just a card you put down on the board, you quest all of your stuff. As your opponent removes things, Vinny gets some really good value. So overall, I'm actually quite happy with the changes, but I do think there's a lot of different ways you can build the decks. Like, I know Frank Carson was trying out the new Nala within Steel, the 2-cost uninkable. My thought process from doing my testing was like, okay, if my opponents are playing Nalas and I'm playing Calhoun's, I'm very happy with that. They can exert their Nalas and I can just challenge him with my Calhoun. But Moyen, I do want you to talk a little bit about this Sven inclusion within this deck, because you mentioned a play that I don't know if many people know about this Sven. It was very cool.
Yeah, but I guess at this stage, this deck is probably the deck you care about most about, like, or I guess Purple Steel as well. But this is one of the decks that you really want to be beating. So like, you also have to think about, okay, if I'm playing this deck, how do I beat the mirror? And I think Sven is super versatile. One is just like just a 2-quester that ready something so it can quest again next turn. That's already like basically good enough to be worth including in this deck. But now with people, like, this deck often relies on Tiana and Pluto to really protect your board from efficient trades, like to make it really, really awkward for your opponent to take these trades. And if your opponent's trying to do the same thing to you, you can sometimes just like Sven their Pluto, and there's no bodyguard in play, take all the good trades, or Sven the Tiana and then take all the good trades. So I think that really adds to the value of the card and I think warrants including the full 4 copies of the Sven now.
I think that's something that honestly most people would look at this card and just not realize that, oh, I can do this on my opponent's card. Because when do you want to ready your opponent's card? It's such a niche thing. It is, though, right?
Yeah.
Like, there's been no other time where I feel like it's been very very valid to do. Maybe in a sealed match where you had Sven, it's like, oh, I readied the bodyguard, I take this card out, I win the game. You know, it's such a neat situation, but I think it's a really neat interaction, and I'm glad you were able to highlight it.
I think in the next meta it will. At some point, people will just this will just be like a very common thing. They're like, oh, of course, if I have a bodyguard, I have to be careful of their Sven readying it.
Yeah. No, it's pretty cool. I think that's awesome. The next deck is green purple. Again, this wasn't a deck that you specifically built last week, but I took inspiration from NVR Taris, and honestly, I think out of all of the decks, similar to the tier list we just saw from the Artacast, this was probably the weakest one. It didn't feel great into Blurple because Blurple just had a lot more value. Although when you got to some of the top end of this deck, like the John Silvers, it was pretty good. But I didn't previously have the Rapunzels in this deck. I think the Rapunzels are very, very nice. Previously had Banzais and like I think I just had the it's not the Royal Guard or whatever the octopus one drop that whenever you draw a card it gets +1 strength. So I put a Merfolk in place for that. I put a Go-Go in place of the Banzai. Go-Go is just, I don't know, I feel like Go-Go's interesting in Emerald now because there's just like general ways that you are trying to trade up against stuff, and like there can be situation where Go-Go seems like quite good. Sometimes if you just have to play Go-Go on 2, it's also not the worst. So yeah, this deck was cool. The new Genie was cool. There's some cool interactions you can do, but like you play the Genie and then you play your Elsa to exert something, and your Elsa is basically a 4/5 that hits into stuff. I've just like less Dumbos here because there's a little bit more top end in this deck, but like you could play more Dumbos if you want to. Heffums was really good, as well as just like the reckless stuff for John Silver. But Mother Knows Best is a card I just want to talk about a little bit because it's a card that really does help out against the Tiana. Even as temporary removal, like you said, it's basically the same thing as like playing the Sven to ready it to then get your kind of good trades. So Mother Knows Best was surprising, but because it's uninkable, it can be a bit of a shame at times because against other matchups, like if you're playing against a Blurple deck, you don't really want to bounce a Blurple card back to their hand because they'll probably get decent enough value from it again. So yeah, just interesting to think about Mother Knows Best within the meta. It's a kind of cool temporary removal tool, but because it's uninkable, it's like the prime example of, you know, there is a big deck building cost that comes to it, and if you feel like it's not good enough against the majority of things, maybe you don't want to play so many copies. But I mean, I know you haven't built green purple, but curious to hear your thoughts of like, is this the general direction you'd like to go in? I see a lot more people building with like more Pegasus 1-drops. Like, is this the most powerful thing that Emerald Amethyst can do? I think for the top end stuff maybe, but I just don't know if it's better than like Blurple stuff, right?
Yeah, it's like it's living in this it's living in a weird world where it has like the main. How does it stand out mainly? The early game Merfolk is incredible, but because of Amber Steel, people already play a lot of 1-drops that can challenge. Like Merfolk is also like the most amazing against decks that just like don't always play a 1-drop on 1, and then suddenly you gain like a lot of lore, maybe you open multiple Merfolks, etc. It has the Louis, but people are already reacting to the Louis very well with like the
hooks,
the Captain Hooks and Rafikis. So outside of that, it has like the tempo swing of Mother Knows Best. If it can hit like a Pluto or like that can be such a huge tempo swing, it can often win off the back of that. And then the last thing would be, it's really good once it stabilizes to like lock out the game, right? If you look at this Rapunzel and the John Silver, once they stabilized, if they get these cards on the board, whatever you play, it's not questing or it's getting reckless. So if like I guess if this deck can against the aggressive decks get to that point, like consistently survive the early game to get to that point, then it has a lot of potential. It's just like can it really do that?
Yep, yeah. I did feel in the few games that I tested when I got to that point, like you said, the Rapunzels and the John Silver put in a lot of really great work, and it kind of felt like I was maybe locking the game out. But it's not like it's a ramp deck where you can get to that fast, right? You know, like you have to kind of take your time and then just gradually get to it. The next deck is Purple Steel, And I definitely enjoyed testing your build. I liked the Doc Mines package. It was pretty okay against the Amber Steel stuff, but it is every time I play the Doc Mines package, it's like paying 2 to move something is a cost, right? It
Yeah.
is two is twice as much as 1, and you really feel it in this deck. And trying to fit it into the curve of like, oh, I play a 3-drop and I also need to have 2 to do this. I felt it to be a little bit challenging at times, especially because um there's actually so few 2-drops in this deck, which could be a change I might have to make where uh if I'm not just playing a Calhoun and then doing the mines type of stuff, then I can't really efficiently play another character as well, if that makes sense. So sometimes trying to activate the mines for my curve felt a little bit off. Um, but yeah, previously, like the biggest changes I've made here was I've decided to put the Tinkerbell package in it because I think Tink is an interesting way that could combat Amber Steel quite well. The Bell was quite good against Amber Steel aggro as well. Dumbo was cool with the, these cards have evasive on my turn, but it didn't come up. It didn't actually come up that much because, like I said, Dumbo in general is a card that's a little bit better to play the later the game goes on, and because this deck isn't ramping, you're not gonna have a lot of ink that fast. So, it was fine when it worked, but like I said, like I actually don't think there's a need to say, oh, I need to run 4 Dumbos in this deck. Like maybe the meta might get to that stage, but I felt
Mhm.
like 2 or 3 was kind of fine numbers. Honestly, with the Hypnotic Strength in this deck, I cut them down to make some space for the Tinks, but I'd probably try to keep it at 4. Hypnotic Strength in my testing was just very, very, very good a lot of the time for the evasive wars, for Calhoun's being able to hit into like rhinos or something. Just in general, I really, really liked Hypnotic Strength. Um, but yeah, any other notes? Like, what other way do you think you'd build this that maybe didn't have the Doc Mines package, which wouldn't be that different, right? Like you're only really taking it
Yeah.
maybe happy in the mines, that you think people are maybe trying to take this deck, and do you really believe from a theory standpoint? Like I know I've done the testing and I've still found that yeah, this has maybe a little bit of game into Amber Steel, but it does not feel, oh yeah, I can definitely win, right? Like do you think you can build this in a
Um,
way to make it that much better?
I'm not quite sure how you would
Mm.
achieve that. I think like fire the cannons could
Yes.
help you
Yeah.
like get ahead in tempo maybe a little bit quicker,
Hmm.
but then in turn it would like hurt some of your other matchups. I think that's like the main way you could do that. But yeah, I don't think you have to play the mine package whatsoever. You could
Hmm.
totally um just try to play without that, or even without the Dumbo. I think you could build this deck. Um, I'm a little bit surprised. I think you've cut down on some of the Diablos. I guess you also cut down on Hypnotic Strength, but like I think Diablos together with like Hypnotic Strength and Yelana can make a lot of
I,
sense.
I agree. No, that was actually quite effective. Yeah, like I said, this is maybe not the most optimized one because I was quickly trying to fit in the Tinkerbell package. So maybe I cut some.
And how was the Tinkerbell package for
I
you?
I didn't test the Tinkerbell package. This is the change
Okay,
I would
okay.
make. Um, I could definitely see the Tinkerbell package working quite well, basically. Um, so yeah, that's like the main 4 decks I tested. Those are kind of my overall thoughts. I think they're going to be some of the best decks going into Fabled initially. But now, let's get into some fun decks because I have to say, uh, over the past like week and a half, I genuinely have had a lot of fun building decks. Like I've said in the past openly, I don't do a lot of deck building. I kind of do some deck tweaking once meta decks have been established and stuff. And because this is like a big rotation, I was like, you know what? Let's get a little bit creative. I have some time on my hands. Let's build some decks. So I genuinely had a lot of fun making some cool combinations, and ultimately a lot of them were like, yeah, there's some neat stuff you can do here, but maybe the deck just doesn't have enough card draw. Build another deck. Yep, maybe this deck just doesn't have enough card draw. That was kind of a pattern I felt the
Yeah.
more I built the decks. But I have to say it was very fun to just uh, test new not test, just build new stuff, brew new stuff, try to find some cool synergies.
Hmm.
Yep. Okay, let's go into your deck, Ruby Amethyst from set 9. Disclaimer, I did tell Moyen beforehand when he showed me this deck, I think he may have been in the oven a little too much. He may have cooked a little bit too much. I think the idea is very, very good, but But go ahead. You guys will spot one card in this deck and you'll know exactly what I mean. Go ahead, Moyen.
This was in the Artacast tier list. This was like in B tier.
Mm-hmm.
I think this in my testing this seemed at least A.
Okay.
To me. And okay, so there's a lot of Amethyst cards in this deck, right? So what are like the main reasons to play Ruby? One of them is actually the small Sisu, which I've been very much known to like dislike in basically all metas where like in some matchups it doesn't have a target and then it just sits in your hand. But the power level is a lot lower, and it's like it kind of has targets in like almost all matchups now. As
you should explain that if possible, because I would say, of course, it's so good against Diana. We know this is good against Diana, but maybe just list off some examples for other matchups, right?
Sure.
Like Captain Hooks and stuff, right? Go ahead.
Yeah. At first, if we look at like the Amber Steel list that we were showing earlier, if a deck has like 4 Tianas, it's amazing. If it has some Veenies, like I think Veenie could also be good. It gets even better. It's like such a huge tempo swing. It single-handedly makes this deck a very good contender for like one of the best counter decks to Amber Steel.
Yep.
But Amber Steel and also specifically aggressive decks, which are very dominant right now, being in the meta, kind of force all of these purple decks, and most decks are purple decks, because if you don't play purple,
you're not drawing cards.
Then you have very little card draw, so then you have to play like at least steel to draw some cards. So decks are pretty okay. There's Amber Emerald and like Emerald Sapphire maybe, but like most decks in the meta right now, they're either purple or they're steel. So they're either Amethyst or they're steel. And to deal with aggression, every purple deck is playing like Rafikis and Royal Guards now, the Octopus Knight or something.
Yep.
And the steel decks, they're also often playing Captain Hook. And yes, they could just ink them, maybe try to play around the Sisu against you, but that's a lot of deck cards that, like, if they play them out early, the Sisu is like very, very reasonable. And you could say, okay, this is a 3-drop that deals with a 1-drop, but it's still like a card that banishes one of their cards and like leaves up a character. And I know the character is small, but like you can still utilize it very well in this deck, either by like buffing it up with Yelana or Hypnotic Strength, or maybe you just like let it sit around to at some point play Dumbo and exert it to draw a card. Or my favorite thing, maybe it helps you sing the second star to the right. Okay, that's not like, it's not like the card's only in here because we have these Sisus, and these Sisus are like kind of expensive for being a 1/1. I think also one easy assumption to be making is like, oh no, the meta is so aggressive, which means I never have time to set up a board. But like, I don't know, the meta is so aggressive that everyone's playing anti-aggressive cards, and then like that kind of lead to standoffs between piles of characters for a while. And like the second star to the right can help you flood the board very, very efficiently. Usually like you need to wait until you play a shark or something, and then whatever you had plus that can sing it. I've had some games already where I just like went like 1, 2, 3, 4, and if my opponent would have quested, I have like good challenges, so they don't challenge, and then like I let my entire board sing this draw 5 song, play some more cards. So, and I'm very well aware, like maybe it doesn't make the cut in the end, but like this is so much better than I first thought. This was like, I was almost afraid to test it because like I don't like wasting time on stuff that I don't think will work. But then I convinced myself, okay, let's test this a one-off, because I definitely don't want to draw 2 copies of these. If I get to finally sing this once, I don't want to draw another copy. It's like the deck works without this card. But this one copy in like, I don't know, 15 to 20 games that I have on this so far, has put in a good amount of work.
I like it.
Yeah. Outside of that, I think the Goofy can kind of catch people off guard, or even if they see it coming, it's just kind of a tank in terms of like these evasion wars. Lumiere also performs very, very well in this deck because we do just flood the board. And suddenly it allows our, like, even the Royal Guard sometimes, like, usually it can't quest, but then you, like, play a Lumiere. Maybe that allows it to quest because your opponent has stuff with 2 willpower. Maybe you play, like, 2 Lumieres and suddenly your 1-drops that are usually only sitting there until they can challenge can, like, have a decent quest and deal some damage back. And Diablo is, of course, very, very good in a deck like this because it's just supported by Lumiere, Yelana, Hypnotic Strength. It does a lot of work. So I think, like, from my early testing, it's not like I suddenly think this is the best deck in the format, but, like, I think this is actually one of the better decks that I've seen so far.
Yeah, I'm really impressed by a lot of the reasoning explanation. Like another card I can see that would combo very nicely with Lumiere as well is this 3/1 Vanellope. I've publicly stated many times how much I love that stat line of just a 3/1, a 2-cost 3/1 with evasive. Lumiere allows it to take out genies and stuff like that, which is very, very cool. Lumiere also then, if you have the Sisu on the board, makes that a 2, and then in combination with Hypnotic Strength or Yelana, can allow your Sisu to then potentially take out a genie or something, which I think is, it's pretty cool. And yeah, I mean, I kind of memed on you a little bit about the Sisu, right? Like, it being a card that in the other matchups, it's only getting rid of 1-drops or whatever, but it's still getting rid of something, and a lot of these other decks are purple decks, like you said, so should be getting rid of, like, Rafikis maybe, hooks. It's not the worst if you do that because they're rarely going to exert their card or quest their card. So you're basically kind of just getting rid of a 3/2 in a sense. So if you look at it that way, it's like, oh, it's okay. And yeah, maybe this card really, really, really is just needed against the Tiana stuff because from all the other testing that I've done, Percy right now, I just haven't found anything that works better than. I mean, the Sisu is. It looks like it's designed to combat it, right? Like it
Yeah,
really does.
to hopefully keep it in check. No, I don't blame you. At first, Alphas had sent me, like, a version similar to this. I looked at it and I was like, do I really want to test this? It's like, is the red part of, like, the ruby part of the deck really pulling its weight? But could just be that this is the best way to keep aggro in check.
Yeah. No, I like it a lot, and I hope people experiment with it. Let us know your thoughts if you test it. Go ahead.
Yeah. Just one thing. When I tested this, I was so mad that this deck had, like, no 3-drops that you could just play on 3 regardless of the circumstances.
That's
because if your opponent doesn't quest, Yelana that isn't like 2/3 quest for 2, still better than this Lilo that keeps underperforming for you. That's just like a 2/2 quest for 1 when you don't have exerted characters to challenge into.
Yep.
And if the Sisu doesn't have a target, that's also not a great play. So, like, often you'll end up maybe playing a second 1-drop, and a second 2-drop. And if you can do that, that's often okay if you have, like, the card draw to back it up. But I'd love to just have, like, a good 3-drop. There's some 3-drops that I think could still be worth testing, but they're, like, so much worse than the 3-drops that we used to have in, like, Crab and Fox. So I think, like, and let us, I guess maybe the listeners can test these out a little bit as well. So let me know if any of these work for you. But, like, the best 3-drops that I found that could be okay would, like, I guess it could be White Rose, but it's doesn't really fit,
just
like,
because it's a 3/3, right? Yeah.
But at least it's a 3/3 with, like, some upside.
Yep.
And the other ones it could be Bucky, which is like the
3/2, right?
Yeah, the 3-cost 3/2. If it's banished in a challenge, draw a card. So that's, like, at least.
Oh no, there's another one you mentioned as well. You sent it to me in the chat, right?
Yeah. So with the Bucky, at least if my opponent challenges into it, I get a card. But, like, the problem is, what if Fire the Cannons also becomes meta, and then, like, a 3/2 stat line is really annoying. And then the last one like, I currently I kind of have the most hope in this one if this deck wants a 3-drop, which is Mr. Snoops, which is a inkable 3-cost 3/3 quest for 1. And it says during your turn when this character is banished or card. So you have to kind of like challenge into something to make this work. But that I think that could still fill this hole, maybe.
I think, yeah, those are some pretty cool 3-drops to think about. I never thought there'd be a world where, playing a 3-cost 3/2 in a meta where there's, they have to play Fire the Cannons, or if they're not playing Fire the Cannons, then this is like actually pretty good. This is a card that just might replace itself. It's kind of crazy to think about. We're there, right?
It's kind of like, I mean, if you get it to work, it's similar like a chip, right? Okay, yes, sometimes chip can like snipe some very important cards if they have little cards in hand, but still chip is like a 3/2 that goes +1 in like card advantage.
Yep. Yeah, that makes sense.
Bucky could sometimes be that as well.
The next deck is your blue steel ally deck. Talk to me about this, Moyen.
Oh man, I just talked so much. Okay. Well, I first saw this from like Hard and Sweet, and so I guess I didn't even realize we had like this Jasmine shift line.
What? You didn't know about this?
No, I didn't know, but we did like this is not new. We had this before.
Yeah, it's
just like it was like set 8 power level was so much higher that like you didn't even need to look at Jasmine. But Jasmine's in set 1 to 9 is actually an incredibly powerful shift line to just like on turn 2 already be questing with a 2/5 that like lets you draw a card basically each turn. So that is extremely powerful. The Scar works very well with like this ally theme, even if it is a little bit slow. I think at first this was like on 4 Scar, and Scar has some synergy with itself because like if you have multiple Scars, your allies have multiple strength buffs, and then like if you banish one, you draw more. But it still can be quite clunky. So I went down to 3, and then the deck tries to ramp into like this value or like tempo swingy late game of Tinkerbell, Hades, Vincenzo even. Vincenzo's also like it's a 2/8 that quests for 3. Helps you take out something. That is in this meta, it's really good card.
Yep.
Outside of that, like I display some of the like better statted allies, Smee, Genie. Pleaky is funny. Sometimes you even like Pleaky your own shift at Jasmine and just like ramp yourself for 2 if you like think, oh, they can take it out anyways.
Sure.
Pluto's one of the best allies in this deck because it just like it's very well statted and it's like very high strength just for like a Scar to take out usually. But there's also some support shenanigans that you can do in this where you like buff something strength with a support character to then draw more cards off Scar. And if you ever like get something like that to work, you usually have enough cards for like the rest of the game. So that's what the ban is kind of in here for. Also at the start, the deck was only playing Tipo, and Tipo wasn't performing that well for me. Just because the 4 drops in this deck are like not that amazing to play on turn 3. And also you want to shift on 2 a lot of the time. And if you do get to shift on 2, like you never really want a Tipo again in the game. And I think there's 2 ways you can go about this. Either you cut the Tipo and you just like say, okay, I go 1, 2, 3, 4, fine. Until I play a Pleaky and ramp a little bit. Or you play Tipo and Sail, and then you need to like improve the 4-drop slot a little bit. So that's also like part of the reason why now the deck's playing the extra bends. Because maybe occasionally we will actually ramp to a 4-drop on turn 3. But it's still like these turns can feel very awkward, and the games where you don't shift on 2 feel very awkward, which is why I think you want to play more than just 4 Jasmines. I'm currently on 6, but you could play even more than 6 1-drop Jasmines. They're a little bit annoying because like they're bad cards that you don't want to draw late, and they're not allies. So like once you do get to shift, if you find just too many of these 1-drop Jasmines, you also don't get to draw. But yeah, the deck can feel very on and off, and I'm not sure it's like quite there, but it is more powerful than like I'd first thought. I think the Jasmine, the Scar, they work very, very well, and the late game of this is also there. It can still struggle to like deal with very aggressive openings. It's like not that fast to really get to challenge, so it can also still be overrun. So it has its weaknesses, but I'm curious how this build evolves, because I do think that it has legs nonetheless.
Yeah, shout out to the Ben inclusion, the best one of the best Lorcana team members. Shout out to Ben.
Yeah, our favorite.
Our favorite, of course. Yeah.
Oh wait, the one thing I still wanted to say.
Yes.
Well, right. At first, I think there was like, what's the card called again? Is it Alice?
Yes.
3-drop that gives everything support, and like if you go wide and then play that, you can like Giga support buff something and just like keep stacking that to like draw a million cards. But like on its own, I'm not sure the card's that good, so it didn't make the card for me in the end.
I know that's something that Harlan's been testing is with that Alice. I've got two questions I want to ask about this deck. First one is, we are playing Happy and Doc. Do you think there could be a place for mines in this, or maybe not? It's also a little bit difficult again to fit in then, right? Because maybe in the late game it's okay, but it feels a bit awkward to maybe include in this build.
I think for actually it makes a lot of sense. I think how good the mine is kind of depends on like how many good targets are there that you can just
Ping.
where the 2 damage is like really, really impactful. For example, like when Diablo 3-drop was in the meta, then like mines were better because that was like a good way to deal with it. But I do think if you, as I said, like Tipo and Sail, I don't think you have to play them. If you want to build the deck without ramp, I think you probably build it with mine as like one of your extra 2-drops, and then a common turn 3 could be like Happy and Move or something like that. So I think mine is a very fair shout that I would probably play without ramp.
And then the other thing I wanted to ask, and we'll get into this a little bit more once we talk about the Ruby Steel deck, but it's just surrounding the Scar in general. So I haven't tested the Scar a lot myself, but I've played against the Scar a little bit, and I did have this exact thing happen where my opponent played they had the Pluto, they had the Scar, they quested with the Scar, and they got the value out of the Pluto. And, you know, drawing 6 and discarding 2 is quite good, but it also depends of the supporting deck that it's in. But while it definitely did feel good, it's a balance of you're losing tempo to gain value, right? Like you are still sacrificing a character, and I do have to say, like we got a lot of comments on last week's episode. I don't know if it was last week's, but people, I don't know why. I'm not trying to meme on some of our viewers that are telling us this, but people are still trying to convince me/us that Dinner Bell is playable. Oh, Dinner Bell is like, why are you guys giving this card a shot? And I think Dinner Bell, it also revolves around similar stuff to what Scar is doing in terms of like, well, with Dinner Bell, it's like such a high cost. You have to pay the 4 ink, and then you also have to pay the 2 ink, and then you have to banish the card. But just this idea of banishing a character to get value and draw cards is like, I think there's a balance to it, right? Because I think in certain situations with this Pluto, yes, it's really, really good, but there's times where I'm like, wow, like this is such a tempo. Like I've just played this 4-cost 5/5 bodyguard that's like kind of building up my board, protecting my board, and now I'm getting rid of it to draw a lot of cards. So it has to be like a very specific situation, I feel like, that you need to use the Scar in, and I think it's maybe not as easy to understand the situations where it's good versus where maybe it's not so good. Does that make sense? Just like understanding, am I losing too much tempo to gain value right now where it could cost me potentially, right?
Yeah. No, it makes a lot of sense. It's like, this is like Dinner Bell and good, kind of.
Yeah.
But still, when testing this, I've already had games where it's like, oh, I could draw like 6 cards, you discard 2, but like maybe I just win the game if I keep my character because I'm ahead enough in tempo where like there's no way for them to come back if I just have this Pluto sit on the board, for example. So it still makes up for some interesting decisions. It's not always correct to draw cards just because you can. So yeah, I like this. I I like the Scar.
Yep, cool. The next deck is Ruby Steel. So we still have the Scar in this deck. This deck was made by This Is Beat, aka Pascal, a big German content creator. Very, very nice guy. One of the official German casters for Disney Lorcana challenges and stuff. And yeah, he played this against me. It was surprisingly fun to play against, but it also had some cool synergies in it, some cool different things. So it has this Mickey Mouse shift, which when he played this against me, it felt like a game ender, if that makes sense, like something to really kind of close out the game, come out of nowhere. It has a lot of great ally synergy. It's playing Miss Bianca, which if you play so many allies, this is just like a 4-cost 5/5. And with this Tinkerbell, it's also playing a lot of characters with 5 strength or more. For example, this 3-cost Pete, the Pluto, the Prince John. So your cards can kind of come in exerted. But this Tinkerbell and the Scar actually have some cool synergy, because Scar just says when the card is exerted at the end of the turn, you can use it. So if you've got Tinkerbell, you do your Scar, you can activate your Scar immediately rather than having to wait a turn, which again is still not always correct, but could be pretty cool in certain circumstances. This Mickey Mouse shift, not the 3-cost one, but the 5-cost one was pretty good as well. It's whenever this character quests, chosen pirate character gets +2 strength and gets this character takes no damage from challenges this turn. And there's a decent amount of pirate characters in this deck. There's the Pete, the Moana, the Captain Hook. And yeah, I think you could maybe even build this a little bit more, like a tiny bit more pirate heavy potentially. And if you do that, I would try and include TikTok, because I think TikTok in this deck could be pretty good. Because I mean, look at this deck, Moyen. Like the biggest weakness is against evasive. Let's be real. Like this deck would really, really, really struggle against evasive cards. I mean, TikTok single-handedly may not help, but it definitely helps. And
Yeah.
no, I mean, like this is actually the prime example of a deck where super creative, super cool things that you can do. Even this Pete that's like a 5/2. You could never get away with playing a 5/2 beforehand, but I mean, in this meta, it's still not great, because sure, like a 1-drop could technically take it out, but it works pretty well with the Tinkerbell. If the Pete does come and just survive, and then you do like the shift Mickey Mouse, you can make this Pete like a 7/2 that just takes no damage from a challenge. That's kind of cool sometimes. But yeah, this is like the perfect example of like a super creative, fun deck with some cool synergies. The Scar stuff is the one thing that makes it like maybe a tiny bit playable in my opinion. But
Yeah, there was
yeah,
like, wasn't there at the end of set 8 there was like a Tinkerbell deck that made top cut somewhere, right?
a Ruby Steel one.
The 2-drop
Yeah.
Tinkerbell.
Oh
Yeah.
no.
So,
That was a Ruby Sapphire deck with the Tinkerbell. Yeah.
yeah, but like that really drew my attention to this Tinkerbell. I think
Yeah.
this Tinkerbell is like really decent build around card, so it's a fun build.
Yeah. It was surprising to me how fun it was, honestly.
Did you lose to it?
I won and I lost. Yeah, I think I won with Amethyst Emerald because I just made so many of his things reckless, and then the next game he won because he just drew loads of cards with Scar and did some crazy stuff. I think he double strengthened me as well, which is just it was pretty good. But this deck is Emerald Steel. I've called it the Alien Pirate deck because turns out a lot of the pirates from Treasure Planet are also aliens. So
Yeah.
I tried to build this around the Lilos, which is funny because when I adjusted this deck before the podcast, the last change I told Moyen was like, yeah, I'm actually going to cut down on these Lilos because they're not that good. But I think having 2 in this deck, if you just have a lot of decent aliens as well, is fine. But this was a really cool deck to build. I think there's some cool synergies. This Captain Hook is a very interesting card with an Emerald. It's 3-cost inkable 1/4. That quest for 2. It has some weird ability about pirates. It's whenever it's exerted, opposing pirate characters can't quest, but it does have whenever this character is challenged, draw a card. And that's just a bit more card draw with an Emerald. Seems okay. If you're actually playing 8 Captain Hooks within this deck, so I figured playing the shift line was pretty good as well, and the shift line for this Captain Hook's really not that bad. It's like shift 3, 4, 5, quest for 2, do something about buffing characters with extra strength and resist. There's definitely a different way you could build this deck. You could try and slot in the Tinkerbell package, which would be pretty interesting. The biggest issue I found with this, again in theory of just like building it, is I struggled with 4 drops in the deck. Originally I had 2 4-cost inkable 2/3 Tinkerbells, the ones that give evasive when you play it. That's a card you could play as a 4-drop. Then you could play the bigger Tink. And if you did play the bigger Tink, and you also have the Steel John Silver shift line in this, maybe we're getting a little bit too cute. But you could play the Gizmo Duck, which is a green steel. It's 4-cost inkable green steel card, 4/3 with resist 1, and you can challenge ready damaged characters. So the idea of kind of pinging all of your opponent's board with like Tinkerbell or with this big John Silver, and then using the Gizmo Duck as something that can challenge something maybe interesting. I think ultimately you need a bit more support to be able to like ping stuff easily and then utilize the Gizmo Duck's ability. I don't even know if it's called Gizmo Duck, but
yeah, it's a Gizmo Duck.
Gizmo Duck, yeah. But the final thing I wanted to mention was the inclusion of the 2 max goofs within this deck. 3-cost inkable 2/2 with an Emerald. When you play it, if you pay 1, I believe. Yeah, if you pay 1 ink, you return a song card from your discard that costs 3 or less. Is it song or action? Yeah, it's song. And in this deck, I think Mother Knows Best and Strength of a Raging Fire, probably some of the best songs you can get back. So I thought that was pretty cool.
For sure.
Yeah. I think you could also play Heffalumps and Woozles. It's also a fine song to get back. But I think like this deck, again, it's an example of a cool brew. There's some interesting things in it, but ultimately it will just fall due to the lack of card draw. That's why Clarabelle's in the deck, to try and help with the card draw stuff, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think all of these decks, they're at least that they can I don't know, they have like at least legs, because by playing Steel you already have like Dock and Strength,
Yes.
which are like
Yeah.
two of the best cards in the format. And then outside of that, okay, we're playing all of these pirates, but is like the only payoff we have for playing so many pirates is that our TikTok is
Yes!
evasive
Let's
on
go!
our turn,
I love it!
I like that, but like in your head, if you think about a pirate deck, you're like, maybe there's some pirates that have more strength if I have more pirates, or like some more lore. But no, only our crocodile, which is a 5-cost 5/6, has evasive on our turn.
I mean, there is a card I didn't put in this deck, but you could probably consider it. Isn't there like the 6-cost uninkable Mr. Smee that when you play it, you can deal damage to something for each pirate character you control? That seems
I remember something like that.
Yep.
To check.
I believe that's what it is.
I do think like Max Goof with Strength,
Mm-hmm.
and I guess if you play Max Goof with Strength, you're also in Emerald, so then
Yep.
you can always play Max Goof with like Strength and at least Mother Knows Best. I think that's quite powerful. You can like recur the best removal in the game, and then if Strength isn't enough, maybe sometimes you're like, okay, take Mother Knows Best.
Yeah.
Go for the tempo swing.
Yep.
Yeah, the Smee is, when you play this, you may deal damage to a chosen character equal to the number of your other pirates.
It's shift, right, as well, which is a bit anti-synergistic
Shift
with its ability, technically, right? You're getting rid of another pirate to shift to play it early. But
yeah. It's quite expensive, to be fair.
But like exactly what you said, right? The idea of this brew is like so cool, and it's like,
yeah,
with a little bit more support, maybe there's something there, you know?
Yeah, and I think it's kind of, I don't know. Well, it's a double-edged sword, right? I don't like that. Well, I'm not in love that the format will probably resolve a lot around 1, Dock and Strength, and 2, like the
Amethyst card
Genie
draw
and
Purple
evasives. Recently I saw an LD tweet where he was like somewhat complaining about the new format.
Mm-hmm.
And like it was like, okay, most games come down to Dock Sparity, and I thought it was so funny.
Oh.
Okay, so but what I was about to say, it's like, okay, I don't love that it resolves around that, but like, I guess it's kind of fun that you can have these like more niche, fun deck ideas, and they are not that far away from working just because you can like build them around this strong core.
Yeah. But this is the thing, I wonder, like, as we move into, like, set 10 and set 11, like, we need more of the, like, those exact things you said are, like, core cards and core, like, pillars of the meta. Like, the pillars of the meta are just, like, Dock and Strength, and Amethyst card draw. Like those are the pillars. And I guess maybe Tiana now is probably a pillar as well. Maybe.
Yeah, but Tiana's not a pillar. Tiana's just like punishing the format for like having little stuff that answers it. But Tiana's not like a great card on its own.
Sure. Yeah, that's pretty much it, I think. As we mentioned, we are going to Malmo Games Week this Thursday, I believe. Myself and Moyen are traveling. So if anybody is attending, please come up and say hi. We're getting back into the swing of things for Lorcana events and stuff as we lead up to some CCQs, Bologna and that type of thing. And yeah, I've just missed interacting with you guys. I met a few people at Gamescom. Granted, most of them were German-speaking people, so maybe they don't consume our content as much, but I definitely still met some people. I played some games with Spessy. A lot of people played against Spessy as well, which is really, really cool. So, yeah, if you're coming to any of these events, just be sure to come up to us, say hi. We're like, if you think, oh, they're probably a bit busy, like, just come up to us, you know, like, we like talking to people, right, you know, like, and we're very, very friendly, so I hope to see you guys there.
For me, I wasn't even sure I was going, but then like I decided kind of late that I do just want to go and
play and see people
and
right?
meet the community again. So I couldn't not go.
Yeah. I mean, I will also admit, like, maybe it's a little bit of a bummer that it's still set 8 meta, right? Like first weekend new set, bam! Like would have been really, really cool. But it's also maybe a bit of a celebration, kind of a bit of a send off. And there will also, of course, be plenty of side events, pre-release events for Fabled. So if you guys are like, oh, I still want to play the new set, you most definitely can. I will bring some proxy decks because I do not have all of the cards. And if anybody wants to play me, if I've got a moment, I'm sure you're the same way, and I can get some proxy decks for you.
Yeah, for sure.
We're very happy to play the new set. So yeah, if you guys haven't got your tickets, I think, you know, I'm assuming most people have, but if anybody wants, you know, a last minute ticket to go to Malmo Games Week, you know, you can use code Podcana and you'll save yourself some money on the ticket. So yeah, the only other event that I would like to mention is the week after, next week, myself and Kim are traveling to the Incorporated Open in Baltimore in the USA alongside Baker. And yeah, this is something I'm actually really excited for because they're going to have an Infinity tournament, but also it's like the first big weekend. I think there will be a lot of tournaments that take place this initial weekend, Moyen, right? And I think that might set a little bit of the precedent for the meta, what type of decks people are playing. And the first week, we might see a little bit more innovation. But as always, like when I went to Toronto, just meeting people in the States, man, it's fun. I always check our, like, you know, how many people from America are watching it. It's a big part of our audience. So very, very happy to meet some of you guys, interact with the community. And yeah, I hope you can make it back over again soon, Moyen. Like, I know you probably really enjoyed your time in Seattle to getting to meet people and stuff, right?
Yeah, definitely. Was one of the best trips for sure. Yeah. Just because like you get to see, I mean, there's nothing wrong with the Europeans. It's just like you get to meet the people that like, because you get to meet them less. It's like kind of like exciting to then finally get to meet.
And yeah, that's it for this week's episode of the podcast. I really enjoyed discussing all of these decks. I hope you guys did too. The number one thing you can do if you liked this episode is leave us a review over on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your local podcast platform. There's a video version available of this podcast over on youtube.com/@PodcanaPodcast. Hit the subscribe while you're there. Twitters are @Moyen_HS and @Kawatech_CG. Thank you guys so much for watching. We'll catch you guys in the next one.